So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tommy Green, and I am the lead community health worker for the formerly incarcerated transition program, and I'm the primary community health worker for the Orange County NC formerly incarcerated transition program. I'm going to be your host this evening, and so this evening we're going to have a conversation about COVID-19 and the vaccine. But before we get started, I want to thank all of our guests for taking the time to have this very important conversation and better informing our community about this horrible pandemic. How we would like to get started, I would like, if it's okay, I would like for the all the participants to introduce themselves, just a really quick who you are, what you do, and why you're on the call. I think I will swing it to Dr. Watkins first.
Hello, how are you doing? And it's so good to be here. And thank you for putting this together and inviting me. My name is Dr. Richard Watkins. I've got my PhD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill from the Department of Microbiology and Immunology, where my focus was virology. I spent most of my time doing research on HIV and how HIV causes disease in HIV-infected patients and ultimately results in AIDS. From there, I went on to become a program coordinator with the Chancellor Science Scholars Program, where we produce the scientists of tomorrow. I am also the founder and CEO of the Science Policy Action Network, where we work on advocacy, outreach, engagement, consulting, and then also research. I'm happy to be with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Welcome, Dr. Watkins. Drew, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Drew Dahl. I'm the coordinator for Reentry Ministries for the Religious Coalition for a Nonviolent Durham. I spent about 4.5 years in prison back in the early 2000s. And since I've come home, have just wanted to make a contribution to people who also are trying to come home from prison. And we service, we touch about 50 to 75 guys a year in transition. And this whole idea around COVID, vaccination, safety of vaccination, access to vaccinations is something that's a huge topic of discussion with our partners and with our volunteers.
Welcome, Drew, and thank you. The reason we're having this conversation is because, of course, everyone knows it's a very serious pandemic going around right now. And with the population of people we serve traditionally, they already hesitant when it comes to medical, anything dealing with anything medical or anybody, or dealing with anything that could be perceived as a little bit suspect. And unfortunately, with people not being really informed, it's a lot of stigma surrounding this pandemic and also the vaccine that goes with the vaccine for the pandemic. So hopefully we'll be able to assuage some worries and some concerns surrounding this vaccine today and inform these people so they can make a better informed decision on hopefully taking the vaccine in the very near future. So with that being said, I'm going to kick off our first question to Dr. Watkins, and that is, what exactly is the COVID-19 vaccine and how does it work?
So the COVID-19 vaccine is a shot in your arm that prepares your body to deal with the virus that causes COVID-19, which is SARS-CoV-2. It basically trains your immune system, so when it comes into contact with the virus, it's able to eradicate it from your body very, very quickly. So just think of it like preparation of your immune system for the virus. The reason why it's so problematic is because it's a new virus and no one has any built-in immunity for it. And so when an individual comes into contact with the virus through infection, your body is always playing a game of catch up. And in the case with a lot of people, the virus outpaces the body's immune system's ability to clear it. And in a lot of cases, over 400,000 now, it can lead to death. And so what the vaccine does is it just prepares your body for SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. which allows your body to protect itself. That's all a vaccine is.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Drew, if you will, would you please share your personal experience or key concerns heard from those in the community?
Sure. So there's really two questions that I think are I'm hearing a lot or seem very important. One of them came up last Sunday, and it was a conversation in a faith team around how do we know that the vaccine is safe? And the person that was asked this question, just a brilliant guy, and his real concern was, as a person of color, how does he know that this was tested on enough people of color that it's safe for him to take it? So that's kind of the first question: how do people of color know that it's safe for them to take this vaccine?
That's a good question. So I will tell you that this vaccine is a little bit different than vaccines in past. And the biggest way that it's different is that the lead on the vaccine discovery team at the National Institutes of Health and the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Disease is a Black woman. And when these safety trials were rolling out, she was able to look at the data, look at how the trials were done, and send it back and say, no, I want more Black people. I want more people of color. I need more data that shows that this is safe for people from the Black community and other marginalized communities. That's very different than any other vaccine that we've ever had. Vaccines that we don't really question anymore. So this vaccine has been more rigorously tested than any other drug or vaccine that we take for granted today. And there's a lot of different vaccines, so I want to break that down right now. The first vaccine that was out is produced by a company known as Pfizer. The platform is an mRNA based vaccine. And mRNA is one of the most fundamental building blocks of biology. It's used to create protein. In this case, it's used to create a protein that is found on the virus, again, training the body's immune system to target and eradicate the virus. Um, and so that is the Pfizer vaccine. The Moderna vaccine is also an mRNA vaccine platform. Those are the two vaccines that are out right now. They have other vaccines that should very quickly be entering the emergency use authorization if they haven't been already. I don't think they have. And those are the Novavax vaccine and the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. Those platforms are a little bit different. Those platforms are, they're just going to go ahead and introduce the um, they're going to go ahead and introduce the proteins into your body so that the immune system is able to train itself on that. Whereas the other one is involves the DNA of a virus so that your body is able to produce mRNA and thus the protein from that. The reason why those are those are going to be really, really useful is because those are going to be able to be produced at massive scale. So I hear a lot of people mentioning vaccine hesitancy as being a problem, but that's not really a problem. So there's no issue with demand. Demand is through the roof. And for the stage that we're on right now, which is 65 and up, just boots on the ground, anecdotally, I can tell you that there's not as much vaccine hesitancy in that group than I think has been reported on. I think the vaccine hesitancy, while it does exist, is being over-reported on. And I think it creates a narrative that it's the public's fault that people aren't being vaccinated how they should be, where the problems are actually the supply and the distribution. Those are the largest problems. And so the supply will be greatly improved once we have the Johnson and Johnson vaccine out, which could be produced at large scale. They don't have the requirement of being kept really cold, and neither does the Novavax as well. And so once we have, especially Johnson Johnson and Novavax, once we have those out, you'll be able to have these vaccines more readily available than they are now.
A lot of our guys who are coming home,
Mhm,
in fact, the vast majority, don't have any kind of health insurance.
mhm.
So how do you, I mean, if I'm just, I'm John and I got home 2 weeks ago and I'm in a transition house and I really don't have other underlying medical conditions that would connect me to FIT or services, what do I do to get a vaccine? How do I get it? How do I connect to somebody to say, I'd like to have a vaccine if I don't have any medical insurance or any connection to any kind of medical services?
Right. So the best thing to do, so it really depends on the criteria of the current vaccine stage that we're on right now. So if you're 65 years of age and over, then you can get an appointment with a health department, or you can get an appointment with a hospital that has the vaccines available to it. Those sites are kept on the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services website. But I will tell you that we're doing a lot to improve that, because there's a lot of inequities that happen there. So one of the things that we're seeing is that individuals who have access to technology, who have the internet, who have a laptop, are able to come in and just get all of those appointment slots before other groups have. That's why some of the stats in North Carolina, and they may have changed since the last time I looked at them, or state this about 9% of the first dose shots in North Carolina are, Black people, whereas over 85% of the first dose shots are white people. And that doesn't track well with North Carolina demographics, which are 22% Black people. And I would also really want to make sure that this is understood, right? So the way the vaccine rollout is done is it's supposed to be given to people at the greatest risk of severe disease development and who are at the greatest risk of succumbing to SARS-CoV-2 infection and the COVID-19 disease. That is the way it's supposed to go. However, we are really, as a state, and I would argue as an entire nation, we're really failing, because the demographics that are most prone to severe disease are demographics that are found in communities of color. And so by only having 9% of the first doses go out to Black people, that's a huge failure, because we know, and this has been the case since the beginning of the pandemic, the Black community are succumbing to this virus at a much higher rate than the white community. So by giving the white community a disproportionate access to the vaccine, that really goes against the plan of the vaccine rollout. And so that needs to be addressed, because that has been a total and complete failure. But I will tell you that you can go to that website and book your appointment. And myself and other communities and other organizations are working really hard to address these inequities by working with people to get them appointments, and then working with the vaccine distributors so we can kind of alleviate some of those inequities.
You brought up a really, really good point. The technology gap and the inequity it creates is a lot of our partners are gentlemen in their late 60s to early 70s who have spent, anywhere between 25 and 45 years in prison. We had a guy come home last fall that had been 52 years in prison, which is just insane. But age and that many years with no contact to technology, the idea of telling them to use a cell phone to make a phone call is a stretch. The idea that they would have to access a website to get an appointment is, it's just not going to happen. So you're right. That's a really tough hill to get over. And a lot of those gentlemen are living in transitional housing with other guys around them. and generally don't have good adherence. So, I mean, are at high risk to get COVID. So, yeah, it really is a concern making sure they have an opportunity to get the vaccine.